It's time for chapter 15 today. All right, let's see. On yesterday, the last thing was you don't know what you're talking about. All right, chapter 15. The next few days passed uneventfully. Jonah didn't get any more strange letters, and no one disturbed the letter he already had. He didn't see any evidence of ghosts or intruders. Catherine and Chip kept insisting on giving him updates on their ongoing research project. No matter how many times Jonah said, "I don't care," he tried to ignore them. But he knew they wanted to call every single name on the survivors list now, too. It'd be easier if Catherine had held the camera a little steadier, Chip told Jonah at the bus stop the third morning. "Look at this." He took a folded up paper out of his pocket, the printout of the photos Chip had pieced together. He pointed at one spot where there was a gap between the words. "Right here. She got the address and the phone number of this person, but I don't know who to ask for when I call. And then down here, right below that, she just got the name and the street address, not even a city name. So I can't look up their phone number online. It's frustrating." "Huh," Jonah said, barely bothering to look at the paper. Then curiosity got the better of him. Since this was only Chip and not Catherine, he decided it was safe to ask at least one question. "What are you even saying to these people when you call?" "We ask who they are," Chip said, what they survived, why their names are on a list at the FBI. "Well, do they know?" Jonah made sure he was looking away from Chip when he asked that, as if he was more concerned about watching for the bus than about hearing about what he was saying. "None of them know about the list. They've survived things like broken arms and chicken pox and minor car accidents and," Chip gave Jonah a sidelong look, "being adopted." Jonah decided not to comment on that. "They'll talk to you? Some stranger calling them out of the blue?" He wondered if everyone was as trusting as his parents. "Well, usually not right away," Chip said, "until I start talking about how I just found out I was adopted and how I got these weird, kind of scary letters and how my name's on the list of survivors too. Usually it's the letter part that gets them talking." "They got letters too," Jonah said. It wasn't a question. He could tell just from Chip's voice. "Catherine already told you that, didn't she?" Chip asked. "Everyone we talked to got them." Jonah didn't want to admit how hard he'd been working to tune out everything Catherine had tried to tell him. He looked around for his sister. She was in the center of the kids laughing and talking under the glow of the streetlight. But she wasn't joining in the laughter. She was peering anxiously at him and Chip. "It's just been 5 or 6 people you've talked to, right?" Jonah said. "I think that's what Catherine said. That's not so many. Nothing to base any conclusions on. It's not like," he tried to remember the proper term, "a statistically significant sample." Wow, his math teacher would be really proud of him for remembering that. "Jonah, it's 17 people so far," Chip said. Jonah remembered that Catherine hadn't been able to help Chip out the night before because she'd had gymnastics practice. He felt a little guilty for not helping Chip himself. And Chip continued, "Every single survivor I've talked to is adopted just like us. They're all 13 years old, or they'll turn 13 within the next month. They all have fall birthdays, and all of them were about 3 months old when they were adopted." Just like me, Jonah thought. "What are they, clones?" he asked sarcastically. "Did you ask to check their DNA?" "Jonah, 8 of them are girls. 3 are Asian, 2 are black. They're not clones." Jonah decided to stop making jokes. "I haven't even told you the weirdest thing," Chip said. "Everybody lives here in Liston or in Upper Tyson or Clarksville." Upper Tyson and Clarksville were the 2 closest suburbs. "So," Jonah challenged, "how's that weird? Maybe this is just the territory for the FBI office I went to." Chip shook his head. "Most of the kids were adopted in other places like me," Chip said, "but even the ones who used to live someplace else, they've all moved here, all within the past 6 months. That's 12 kids moving here all since June." Jonah had chills suddenly. Then he thought of something. Wait a minute. Let me see that list again. Chip pulled the papers back out of his pocket, and Jonah yanked it out of his friend's hands and stabbed a finger at one line of print. "See? This person you were asking me about before? That's an address in Ann Arbor, Michigan," he said. That's miles away in a whole different state. Maybe it's just a coincidence that Catherine only got the complete information on people who live close by. No, wait, here's somebody in Illinois. So there are at least 2 people who live somewhere else completely. Jonah, that's me. In Winnipeg, Illinois, Chip said. I'm on the list twice. Twice with my new address and my old one. Both. Just like I got 2 copies of each one of those weird letters. His voice faltered. Oh, I see. What? Jonah thought of something new too. You think the FBI sent us the letters? No. Well, I don't know, Chip said distractedly. But this person in Ann Arbor, it's a girl, and her name's Daniella McCarthy. The only thing Jonah could see above the address, 103 Destin Court, Ann Arbor, Michigan, was a little line right above the T of Court. It might have been the loop of the Y at the end of McCarthy, or it might have been just a wrinkle in the paper, magnified and darkened by the camera. How do you figure that? Jonah asked. I bet you anything it's the same girl as down here, the one at 1873 Robin Eggs Lane, Chip said. And I bet there's a Robin Eggs Lane in Liston or Upper Tyson or Clarksville. That's the pattern on the entire list. Old address, new address. I bet if I call this Ann Arbor number, I'll get one of those messages. Do-do-do. The number you are calling has been changed. The new number is, and he made his voice robotic, just like a computerized phone message. Now he slipped back into his usual voice. I'll prove it. He pulled out his cell phone out of the backpack and began dialing. Chip, do that later. The bus is coming, Jonah said, because he could see the headlights swinging around the corner. I'm just going to get a machine, Chip said. Got anything to write with? Jonah fished a pen out of his own backpack, and Chip held out his left palm. I'll repeat the number back to you, and you write it on my hand, Chip said. Chip was still talking when the phone clicked. Jonah was close enough to hear, and decidedly a non-computerized voice said, Hello? Sounded like a girl. Hello? Chip said awkwardly. Daniella? Yes. She sounded impatient. Do you still live in Ann Arbor? Where else would I live? Liston, Ohio, or maybe Upper Tyson or Clarksville, but that's not as likely. Are you sure you aren't moving or planning to move or in the process of... No, the girl said in a tone that was very clear. Said, it's such a stupid question. Hey, you 2 going to school today? The bus driver yelled. Jonah realized the bus had arrived and almost all the other kids had already climbed on. He jerked on Chip's arm, pulling him toward the bus. Sorry, Chip was saying on the phone. I think I have some bad information. You really don't have another address on a Robin Eggs Lane in another city? Jonah couldn't hear what the girl said in reply because they were stumbling up the steps. But a moment later, as they shoved their way down the aisle, Chip began pleading, No, wait, don't hang up. Are you adopted? Great pickup line, dude, an 8th grader muttered from his seat. Chip lowered the phone from his ear. Let me guess, she hung up, Jonah asked. Chip nodded. Both of them plopped into their seat as the bus pulled away from the curb. Wow, you really have a way with girls, Jonah wisecracked. Chip shook his head. I don't understand. This doesn't fit the pattern at all. And now she's all mad at me for just asking. Really, I did a much better job with all the other calls, or I had Catherine make them. So just have Catherine call this Daniella back tonight and ask things the right way, Jonah said. You don't understand, Chip said. I don't want to know everything now. Chip slumped in the seat, staring at the cell phone as if he had been betrayed. He looked so miserable that Jonah felt obligated to cheer him up. Hey, Jonah said, jostling Chip's arm. You and Catherine have been hanging out a lot together. Do you still have a crush on her? It was strange how talking about Chip's liking Catherine had become the safe topic. I can't think about crushes and girls and all that right now, Chip mumbled. Not when I don't even know who I am. You're Chip Winston, Jonah said firmly. He felt like he was replaying the conversation he'd had with Catherine the night he'd gotten the second letter, except he was taking the Catherine role. Chip didn't answer right away. Jonah wondered if he'd even heard him. Then, so softly that Jonah had to lean in to hear him, Chip whispered, Can I tell you something? Even before I found out I was adopted, even before I knew Mom and Dad weren't really my parents, biological parents, I mean, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Something different, like I wasn't who I was supposed to be. Like I never belonged. Not here, not back in Winnetka, Illinois, not anywhere. Jonah leaned away and squinted at Chip in distress. Kids weren't supposed to say stuff like that to other kids. What if somebody else heard him? Jonah looked around and Marcus Gladstone was drumming his fingers on the seat in front of him. Owen Rogers was doing his math homework, muttering, come on, multiply both sides by 12, carry the 4. Queen Jackson was telling Nyla Holcomb, that boy is just bad news. Jonah was pretty sure she wasn't talking about him or Chip. Chip hadn't even looked up. He was still talking, his eyes trained on the seat back in front of him. And it seems like this whole adoption thing, maybe that's my answer. Maybe once I find out everything and get an explanation, then I'll know. Jonah shoved his shoulder against Chip's shoulder. Hey, he interrupted harshly, stop that. He tried to remember the argument Catherine had used on him. Weren't you paying attention in that guidance assembly the other day? All teenagers wonder who they are. It's part of growing up. Jonah couldn't believe he'd been forced to use such a goopy line. Now he was embarrassed for himself as he was for Chip. He hoped no one else had heard him. I think this is different, Chip said quietly. He paused, as if to give Jonah a chance to say, I know what you mean, or admit, you're totally right. I felt that way, and not just since I turned 13. When Jonah didn't say anything, Chip went on. And don't you see, this is big. All these kids and the FBI and Ghost. But it doesn't make any sense, Jonah said. I was working on a theory, Chip said. He held up his cell phone. Until our friend Daniella messed up everything. So what was the theory? Before Chip could answer, the phone in his hand began to ring, blaring a Fall Out Boy tune. Quickly, Chip flipped it open and looked at the number. 734 area code. Is that? And he raised the phone to his ear. Daniella? Who are you? Daniella was evidently shouting because this time Jonah didn't have to lean close to hear every word. How did you know? Chip moved the phone away from his head, gave it a baffled look, and then placed it back against his ear. What are you talking about? He asked. We are moving, Daniella screamed. Her voice blared from the phone. This is awful. My life is over. I thought you said you weren't, Chip said cautiously. Well, I didn't know. From the way her voice sounded, Jonah suspected that Daniella was about to cry. My dad made this big family announcement at breakfast. He's taking a job transfer, and that little getaway my parents were on was actually a house hunting trip. They're going to make an offer on a house today. What are you, the realtor's kid? No, actually. Daniella didn't seem to hear him. That wasn't funny at all. If that's your idea of a prank, she fumed, or were you trying to talk me into thinking I was going to like the house? Because I won't. My parents say it's wonderful. She made wonderful sound like something evil. I bet it's a pit. Hold on, Jonah said, struggling to catch up with all of Daniella's fury by phone. Did she say her parents are making an offer on the house today? They don't own it already? Chip squinted in puzzlement. You're talking about the house on Robin Eggs Lane, right? Chip said on the phone. He struggled to pull out the survivors list from his pocket, unfold it, and find the right number. 1873 Robin Eggs Lane? And he bit his lip, obviously making a guess. Listed in Ohio? Yes, that's what you asked me about. Mom and Dad saw it yesterday and they just fell in love with it. She twisted the words bitterly so it sounded like they'd fallen into deep, fiery pits of Hades. Jonah leaned in close and spoke into the phone. You say they just saw this house yesterday? For the very first time? Yes, Danielle moaned. Yesterday, for the very first time, and just like that, they're going to try to buy it today. I think they're having a midlife crisis. They're insane. Why do they have to ruin my life? Now Jonah was certain she was crying. Her words kept dissolving into wails. I hate Ohio. I'm going to be miserable there. And she sniffled. I can't talk anymore. I'm too upset. The next thing Jonah heard was a dial tone. Chip slowly lowered the phone from his ear. She'll call back, he said confidently. She didn't give me a chance to answer any of her questions. But she answered ours, Jonah said. Well, not that she let us ask much, Chip snorted. I still need to know if she's adopted, and if she got the same kind of letters we got, and if she knows what we're all survivors of, and Chip seemed to be working from some sort of mental checklist. Chip, don't you get it? those questions don't matter right now. Jonah eased the survivors list out of Chip's hand and held it up. I got this list 3 days ago with Daniella McCarthy's address on Robin Eggs Lane. Her parents didn't even see the house until yesterday. They haven't made an offer on it yet, but they're going to today. So, he shook the list out of Chip's face. How did the FBI know the future? Well, they couldn't have, Chip said. Seconds passed while both of them stared hard at the list. The 3-day-old list from the FBI that contained information no one should have been able to know until today. Jonah knew that they were almost at school, that the bus around them was filled with kids laughing and flirting and teasing and griping and even here and there singing. But Jonah couldn't focus on anything except the survivors list. That and Chip's voice saying slowly, Unless what? Jonah asked. Unless they're the ones making her move. Ooh, maybe the FBI is making them move. All right, that is pretty interesting. Oh, some more mysteries to try to figure out. So it looks like chapter 16 tomorrow. So is Daniella's parents going to buy the house? I think so, don't you? All right, see you later. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. If you are watching my read alouds, if you send me an email saying something about the book that you have enjoyed, or maybe a prediction that you want to make about the story, I will give you a couple of reading bonus points for being attentive and taking the time to watch all the read alouds. Sound good? I think so. All right, so a couple bonus points if you send me an email today, okay? Today. Got to do it today, though, okay? All right, see you later. Bye.